Mini episode 112 of the FDH Lounge is brought to you by the Pullins Group, delivering public affairs consulting and marketing services for small businesses trying to grow. Follow them on the web at pullinsgroup.com.
The FDH Lounge. You'll want to schedule your life around it.
A long time ago, on a gloomy, wet Cleveland spring night, two men stand alone amidst the late-night drizzle. Their voices echo across the vacant station parking lot as they debate the merits of the great American radio show that have been missing for far too long. On that night, an idea was born. That idea became the FDH Lounge. Welcome to the FDH Lounge.
All right, folks, it's mini episode 112 of the FDH Lounge. Rick Morris and Kyle Ross here with you. Kind of an addendum, if you will, to the Kyle Ross 9-part History of WrestleMania Series. Kyle, we previewed WrestleMania 28 at the end of it, and we are here today to recap what we saw and measure it against what we thought was going to happen.
Yes, a very Ken Burns-esque, I think, 9-part series that we did on the History of WrestleMania. I really enjoyed doing it.
Yes.
First of all, yeah, I hope that a lot of people enjoyed listening to it.
I think they have.
How ironic, though. I wish that I had the liberal outlet. It's funny that I'm going with the conservative outlet run by you as opposed to the liberal outlet of PBS, I'd like to say. And also on one note, before we get started.
Okay.
A couple notes I want to make clear here.
Yes.
While we're live on the air. A little housekeeping, a little dirty laundry I'm going to promote on air. First of all, I would like to apologize to you for yesterday. There was a bit of a mishap yesterday where I was a little confused on the day we were going to do this. I'd like to apologize. I feel so bad that I think I'm going to actually do a sympathy blade job for you while we're doing the podcast.
No problem.
Okay, I'll be the first person to bleed while doing a podcast. That's how sorry I feel. And two, I can only hope that this mini episode is as good as the untaped mini episodes that you and I have done over the last 2 hours here at my condo about ESPN and politics.
Yes.
That unfortunately no one except us two will ever hear.
We've had some good ones here. Since you mentioned blading, I'll start us off on a good note here with this. I don't want to say I've never told anybody this story before. I think I told it to like one or two people who just looked at me quizzically, but I had a weird dream several years back, and it involved blading. There was a couple of friends that I went with to the first of the Brian Pillman Memorial shows in 1998. Went down to wherever that gymnasium was in Cincinnati to see that.
I went to the second. Funny story, me and Chad Repeck missed that one.
Okay.
I'm not even going to get into why.
The Bob Sacramento of this show?
Yes.
Okay.
I worked him in. There we go. I didn't even mean to there.
Nice. Well, so of these, and I had a dream about this at some point after the show. And it was like the weirdest thing ever. I can't even tell you how weird this was. One of the guys in the group that was there, I think it was the guy that drove, Ted, not exactly the Bob Sacramento of this show. But anyways, you remember how at those things they also had like an auction of certain items?
Yes.
All right. I don't know why. I don't know what I had to eat before I went to bed that night. I had a weird dream that this guy, Ted, put in the winning bid on like an actual Brian Pillman blade, and that when he got the thing, he went up there and did a celebratory blade job in front of the crowd.
That's crazy.
Where did that dream come from?
I don't know. It's always funny about blade. When you tell people, like non-wrestling fans, about blade, they're like, no, you're lying.
My best friend, Jeff Maslanich, who has mostly been a behind-the-scenes contributor to the show, really looking forward to working him in more on-air as we go along. He's one of these people that he just obsesses about fake. He's one of those guys. He does not believe that there's any legitimate juice in this. He was trying to convince me on one of these Japanese wrestling death tapes that the thumbtacks were just sparkles.
Oh, dear God.
He's that guy.
Yeah.
Yes.
God bless. It does seem quite inhumane, some of the things in the greatest sport of them all, but
it is. But people confuse the outcomes with it. But,
let me go get the blade in the kitchen right now, okay, and make good on my promise. So.
Well, speaking of regrettable outcomes, I guess that's where we start this show if we're going in chronological order.
Are we going to do that, or how are we going to do it this way?
Why don't we just blow through chronologically?
Okay. Well, do we want to hit any macro ideas? Do we want any large, big world concepts here?
Okay.
Let me hit one.
All right.
WrestleMania. By the way, we're covering WrestleMania 28 here.
Yes.
Post-game wrap-up. A few weeks later, I was out of town, had a wonderful time in Chicago. Thank you very much. But when I think back to WrestleMania 28, my initial thought when I watched the show, and I texted you this, I think, and followed up with an email that was even more descriptive, and it definitely holds true right now.
Yep.
I have never seen not only a WrestleMania, but a major show, or really any show, in the history of this industry should take that back. That's a broad, bold statement. I could probably find a better example. But certainly one doesn't come to mind quite like this, where it was so explicitly clear from the promotion what mattered and what didn't.
Right.
And when you talk about the latter, what didn't, my God, was the first hour of this show so it did not have a WrestleMania feel to it. I'm going through them like, no, it was what, an 8-match card? Overall, 8-match card. And they just blew through these first 4 matches as if to say, you didn't buy the show because of these 4 matches, and by God, we know it, and we're going to treat it as such.
As if it was a house show at the Manhattan Center, essentially.
I mean, even when you go back to, and we talked about these older WrestleManias, they at least tried to make even the pointless seem to have a point.
Right.
You know, they'd air, video packages detailing, what had gone down. And granted, I guess they did that for some of these too, but the speed with which they blew through these compared to the time that now, I'm not saying that top matches don't deserve the extra, because they do.
Right.
Okay, because that's what sold the show. That's what people want to see largely. But it was just so explicit. Like, we'll get in, we get stuff like Randy Orton, Kane, Cody Rhodes, Big Show. Didn't really care going in, and, 2 weeks removed now, or whatever we are, I even care less. They were just so pointless that they didn't even try. They're just like, okay, yeah, we put these guys on the show, and they got a WrestleMania paycheck, but who cares?
But here's why I expect more, and here's why I'm going to be disappointed in any year when they don't go in explicitly trying to make a WrestleMania 17 where everything on there means something and is very good, basically. Here's why. Because I go back to the old SNS days, and as you know, I like to listen to so many old shows there. Listen, in 06,
there were a lot of bad shows.
Boatload. Yeah, you know what one of the main reasons is? They had a boatload of guys and a lot in upper mid-card and top-of-the-card positions who couldn't work. Okay? Now, we don't have to get into the reasons why, but post-Guerrero, post-Benoit, wellness era, they've been shamed into it, but whatever. Almost everybody can work now. There's no excuse. They have excellent workers up and down the card.
I might disagree a little with you. I don't think this is the most talented roster they have by any means. I don't think it's close. Do they have some athletic guys?
It's a hell of a lot better than 5 years ago. It's a hell of a lot better than 8 years ago.
I don't know about that.
It's better than some of the Attitude Era rosters, probably.
It's certainly deeper. That initial run in the that roster did not have a lot of depth to it in like 97, 98. The guys on top were very, very good, and there wasn't a lot of. Those 97 shows, for instance, were well known for having phenomenal main events involving the Harts, the Austins, the Michaels, Undertaker to a lesser extent.
Right.
Foley was in the mix, and then you had like Nation of Domination versus DOA on the undercard, right? The roster, when I look at the undercard of this show, and by the undercard, I'm basically excluding 3 matches: Rock, Cena, Triple H, Taker, and Punk, Jericho.
Yeah.
I'm not making excuses and saying what they did was right. There are a few exceptions, and we're going to get to the big one, Daniel Bryan, in a moment, folks, and my thoughts on that.
And it's shameful, by the way, that one is not lumped in with the other 3 matches you just talked about. It's a world friggin' title match.
Well, my opinion on the split world titles. I don't need to beat that drum.
Right.
It's needless. It's stupid. Okay. Moving forward, I really hope they get rid of it. But anyway, it's a different time, podcast for a different day.
Yep.
I don't see a lot of talent, like talent that I really want to see showcased in a major spotlight. Daniel Bryan's the exception. I would love to see Daniel Bryan. Now, Sheamus wasn't the right guy for it anyway.
No.
But
Sheamus has some real good upside.
I guess.
And you can't even compare him to the big men of 06. Sheamus is a very good worker for his size.
Give me a name.
He wasn't on the roster that long, but Daniel Rodimer. That guy.
He was terrible.
Okay, going back even a little further, then I'm just going to throw out guys generally from that era because I don't always remember year to year. Nathan Jones, Nathan Jones or Sheamus. What was? I don't know that he was necessarily that big of a guy, but he was a crappy worker. Kenzo Suzuki, was he that big of a guy?
No.
Okay.
No, he was not talented.
Okay. But yeah, he was very untalented. Mordecai or Sheamus. I mean, on and on and on, Kyle Ross. Let's be grateful for what we have. Sheamus is a good working big man.
There are, but just because it's better than crap doesn't necessarily mean it deserves a huge spotlight.
Yeah, but
it deserves some respect.
But when you look at the guys on this roster and what they can do with them in the years to come, Dolph Ziggler, Jack Swagger, if they haven't already killed him to death. He's very good. The
really?
Miz.
Very good?
Jack Swagger is very good. Jack
Really?
Swagger could at least be a poor man's Kurt Angle. Jack Swagger is very good. He's a very good worker.
Do we have video
He's
on
got
this
a good
podcast?
hateable...
Do we have video on this podcast to show the look I'm giving you right now, brother?
Jack Swagger, but
I have not
his
seen
booking's been horrible. The booking's been horrible. He can
Here's the
move
thing.
well. He can work well.
Here's the thing. It's on both sides with a lot of these guys.
Yeah.
When you look at the undercard, those guys not involved in those top 3 matches, has the booking been favorable for a lot of them? No, it hasn't. Has it been counterproductive in a lot of instances? Yes, it has.
Yeah.
I just don't see a ton of talent when I look at the non-spotlighted positions on this
Cody
roster.
Rhodes. Cody Rhodes is very good.
He's very,
very good.
Again,
very good.
I don't want to make NBA
future
analogy.
big star.
Really?
Yeah.
See, when you say future big star, is that because of the times we're in, or because he's generally a huge star?
He's not a huge star yet, and he's not perceived as being a huge star yet, but in another year or two, he could be.
Is he like a I mean, again, this is trying to like legitimize it and make it like a sports thing. I mean, is Cody Rhodes like a WWE Hall of Famer?
He could be in the future.
Are these guys, like a lot of these guys?
You talk to NBA, he's Kyrie Irving, I think. He's going to be one of the very best guys.
He could be. I'm not saying, but like right now, he's good. Is he good? Is Cody Rhodes, without me putting too much thought into it, like a top 10 guy in this company? Yeah, he is, but...
And, and another guy, too, and that they have found ways to repurpose guys. God help me, I never thought I'd see a use for this guy, but in the last year, now his push has been start and stop the last couple months, the man who has become Black Vader, Mark Henry.
Yes!
My God, Mark Henry is... who saw that coming?
Yeah, I know.
Holy
I mean,
crap.
you know, some of these tools on certain message boards that I'm not going to dignify by naming, like, thought he was so good, like, a few years ago. I didn't see that then.
Well, I wouldn't give to have been a fly on the wall when the initial idea first came up for Mark Henry's push. That must have been quite a moment.
Yes, and he has improved. But again, it's not... They're good in the classic wrestling sense, but they're not good in that, like, they're going to attract people who otherwise wouldn't buy the show. They're just kind of there and to be filler. Because the way that, here's the thing, they don't book good mid-card storylines at all anymore. I can't even remember the last good mid-card storyline they had. I mean, I kind of liked... we disagreed with this, if I remember, about the Chris Jericho thing at WrestleMania 20, which, by the way, would have been 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was but even, Jericho was kind of had already been a made guy. He was a former world champion.
Right.
I can't remember the last great mid-card storyline this company had.
Right.
Something that did involve, like, a title program or two made guys, quote-unquote. They don't do that anymore.
Right.
So, if they don't do that, then guys that don't have a great story just don't. I mean, they're basically, filler. I barely know her.
As much as I love doing stuff with you now, doing these podcasts, I sort of miss a little bit the Kyle Ross I used to listen to on SNS in 06 and occasionally interact with on the show. The rage against the dying of the light Kyle Ross, who was like, damn it, they got to create the stars of tomorrow. When's The Undertaker going to job to somebody in a meaningful way? I kind of miss that guy a little bit. You're still entertaining to do stuff with, but I miss that guy a little bit. I'm not going to lie.
Like my parents, I have sold out, and I would recommend our listeners to do the same. Here's the thing. There are 100 of political analogies I can make. I'm not going to go into them now. Is that going to it's to the point now where they've blown so many of those opportunities. Here's the thing. I thought back in times, and maybe I was desperate and, just very Skip Bayless-esque, desperate for ratings and just saying things to get a rise out of people or cater to the audience. But
you believe that?
No, I did. But here's the thing. I think, when I got, look at the guys on the roster now, look at the guys on the right, and I'm going back years to 2000.
Yeah.
Okay? When you were talking about, the Benoits, you can't say never mind what he did, but a guy like a Chris Benoit.
That would be very Scott Keith of you.
Yes. A guy like a Chris Benoit, an Eddie Guerrero, a Chris Jericho, a Kurt Angle. When those guys were getting hosed, that was one thing. Because those guys had... I don't see... Now, it doesn't help them when they do job.
Right.
But, Mark Henry at this point, even if he is doing his role well, his ceiling is not what those aforementioned guys were. Those four guys were... And never really... It's funny because they actually all got breaks at the top. I didn't feel true breaks at the top. They were never the man, to quote CM Punk.
Right.
But these guys, some of the guys you mentioned, like a Cody Rhodes, I'm not seeing right now in Cody Rhodes say what I saw in Kurt Angle. And you put Jack Swagger.
Okay.
If Jack Swagger jobbed The Undertaker on pay-per-view, I certainly would not be nearly as up in arms about that as I would say if there had been some podcast that never happened after Fully Loaded 2000.
Right.
Okay, where I remember I was just irate with the booking.
Right.
Because I'm like, these guys will make you money.
Yeah.
Okay, now, again, to your point, does it help these mid-card guys, these newer guys, that when they job? No, it doesn't. But at the same time, CM Punk showed last summer that, yeah, you know what, if you can kind of tread water through some crappy and non-preferential booking, if you get the right situation, you can still become a made guy.
Okay.
So when it really gets a problem is when you've got that perfect storm. And I thought they blew a lot of those perfect storm opportunities through the years with the Benoits, the Angles, the Jerichos, the Guerreros. There's no perfect storm. It's not like these guys are on the cusp. It's not like... And that's not to say they can't. I'm not saying they should quit and become, pizza delivery men.
Right.
But I have not seen a lot of these guys. Dolph Ziggler's very good.
Dolph Ziggler is friggin' awesome. Dolph Ziggler...
See, I listen to these people talk about these great matches he has.
They are. They are awesome. They are awesome. This guy...
Define what's awesome.
This guy should... If what's awesome? This guy.
I don't think he's. I don't think
sniffed 4 stars on many occasions. I believe some of the CM Punk matches. Certainly.
Okay, sniffed 4 stars. To me, that's not awesome. That's doing your job.
Boy, your expectations are kind of lofty. There's not too many guys on this roster that can go out there and expect to sniff 4 stars fairly regularly.
My point exactly.
Well, but I'm just saying, like Dolph Ziggler, like to me, and for example, here's a future segment that I want to do with you. I came up with an idea for this. I know you shot down my overall idea of pro wrestling in the Olympics. Of basically
God, Stu Sachs, get the heck out of here.
But if they were to do that and then submit to judging and everything like that, circa K. Allen Fry of 92, if there was a U.S. Olympic team, 6 guys, Dolph Ziggler's got to be on it.
Yeah,
Dolph Ziggler's one of the 6 best wrestlers in North America. He can go out there. He can work a number of different styles. He's best as a heel, granted. He's best as a heel. He's a phenomenal worker. His moveset is incredible. He's got great charisma to the crowd. I am the biggest Dolph Ziggler fanboy there is. I think he's only behind CM Punk in my estimation as far as pro wrestlers on the scene
Daniel
today.
Bryan?
Daniel Bryan's got to be right there too. It's the 3 of them. Yeah, I'll take Punk first, and then probably Bryan, and then Ziggler.
He has potential.
He's awesome.
Look, do some of these guys deserve to be protected better than they are? Yeah, I'll sign that petition, Rick Morris.
Yeah.
Okay. But he's not at the cusp. To me, when I see Dolph Ziggler, do I see potential? But he is not on. Look, here's the problem again. They don't do storylines anymore.
Right.
Okay? It's all about just perception, and it's just about kind of that one event. CM Punk had it. Okay?
They do some bad half-ass storylines.
Yes. CM Punk did it with the one promo. Okay?
Yeah.
That's all it really takes, apparently, now. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of big moment.
Right.
Okay? That one shining moment. Or the NCAA tournament just ended. That one.
Right.
It's just about getting one shining moment rather than some sort of sustained push that builds to the perfect storm now. So, if that's the way it is, then, okay, then I'm just going to wait for these guys to have their moment. You just can't. I'm not going to beat the drum for them every time out.
But here's the thing, and I think you'll agree with me on this. If you look at the booking pattern of the last at least 2 years, with the way that they brought in Rock for last year, with the way that they said in a year in advance that Rock was going to be at WrestleMania this year in the main event, they appear now kind of overtly, because this is the way that it's gone. I mean, WrestleMania has been, and I go back as far as WrestleMania 20, I think, popped the needle pretty big. There were a couple different times. I think WrestleMania 20 they were hoping was going to be the beginning of the next boom, and it didn't happen. And they seemed like back then to be trying for that. Would you agree with me now that these days they're setting their sights in terms of like, okay, we're going to do a huge number next year? Like, we realize most people are not going to tune in until then, but we're going to get these people. All the casuals are going to come back next year, like for the Super Bowl.
Oh yes, that's completely what it is.
Right.
WrestleMania, and I think we talked about this during the series of podcasts we did this way. WrestleMania no longer, and that's why some people are like, why are you doing all those last ones in one big podcast?
Yeah,
because largely WrestleMania no longer is the final chapter in a year-long story. It's just and there's nothing wrong with what I'm saying. It's just a big event where we're going to put the big stars in a top. We're going to get the biggest stars we can and just put them in top positions.
With few exceptions, it's really the only thing that matters in a year. I mean, outside of CM Punk was an aberration. All they really like they've conditioned it now.
Yeah, what happened in the last 12 months that was that great, except CM Punk? What mattered?
Nothing. Nothing did. And if you go back to 12 months previous,
Alberto Del Rio, who cares?
Yeah. And this is how they've conditioned people to think. So here's my criticism, Kyle, and here's why I want to see, as the idealist that I am, the WrestleMania 17 booking on down the card. Here's why, okay? Because, all right, I accept that most of the casuals aren't going to tune in during the course of the year and everything like that. And I talked to you about this off air last year, being disgusted that while, like the good wrestling hipster I am, that while Daniel Bryan and Sheamus last year was shunted to the dark match, they had time for The Rock and these fart sketches backstage, all this kind of stuff. And I looked at all the marks all around me in Harpo's, and they were lapping it up. Okay, all right, so I get that. I get that that's who they're catering to, these people who only watch it once a year. What you want, if you're going to have a solid business model, if you're ever going to have a chance of growing this thing and getting your stock price out of the penny stock range as they are now and all these other things, you got to make it, Kyle, so that next year when people tune back in, I remember that guy from last year. Yeah, he was pretty good. Oh, that guy's a champ now? I find that completely plausible. You got to grow, Kyle. You got to grow your own.
You're preaching to the converted.
People should understand
you're
growing
preaching
your own.
to the converted.
Yes.
They, though, are very short-sighted.
Yes.
And we'll talk very short-sighted, and we're going to talk about this with the Lesnar stuff after we're done reviewing this particular WrestleMania.
Okay.
But, I mean, to their point, they're right now in Titan Towers, they're very happy with the number this show did. Now, does the question, and I don't know if there is a right or wrong answer at this point right now, it's something that years back we'll have to look at this. Does this one big number, they did a big number, and we're going to talk about that too, folks, because this did monster numbers for them. Does doing this one huge number at the marquee show of the year justify the rather pointlessness of the other 11 months? Or, you could say they always say WrestleMania season starts with the Royal Rumble.
Right.
But that show did a pretty disappointing number.
Right.
Does doing this one huge number justify the disappointing numbers and general pointlessness of the other 11 months of the year? Because to your point, and I think what you're getting at is you're like, hey, you can do a big number at WrestleMania, and you can also do big numbers the rest of the year too. You don't need to just treat the rest of the year as filler, I barely know her, and then just care about WrestleMania.
You got to get people to bond with the current stars and not just the special attractions that are there for WrestleMania.
Yes, if you look at the 98s, the 99s, the 2000s, the 01s, the 02s, going back to that period.
The crew was over.
The crew was over, and during the course of a year, your Summer Slams would do some big numbers. The Royal Rumbles certainly did big numbers. Survivor Series is largely, it's never really been that big of a thing. It's only big because it was the second pay-per-view they ever did.
Right.
But as a concept, it's really no longer over at all. But, yes, you had ran, No Way Out 01 did a big number.
Right.
Invasion 01, obviously that had the hugest storyline ever, which should have been whatever. That's
in a few weeks, Extreme Rules will, but that's the steroid effect of when you bring up Brock Lesnar. I'm not saying he's on steroids. Draw your own conclusions, but it's an artificial injection of a major element.
But what's funny is when you look at things, and maybe they're right. Maybe right now, wrestling's just at a period where people with their attention spans and stuff, people just want to know something's a big deal, and you can't make you realistically cannot have 12 big pay-per-views here. You can try,
right?
But you're just not, unless if you're red hot, you have a ton of talent, and you're doing everything right. It's very rare that you're going to have, even 5-6 straight pay-per-views that really seem like a big deal. In 2000, which was, by the way, their biggest business period ever, they did do that.
Right.
But that's rare. Okay, there's a reason it's the biggest business period ever, because it doesn't happen often. I mean, they do things. They tried to make the Survivor Series special by bringing The Rock back this past November.
Right.
Didn't do diddly poo on pay-per-view.
Well, here's the thing,
and he did a lot more than diddly poo here on April 1st.
The proof in the pudding for what I'm saying for why they should do it this way was referenced by you when we were talking about WrestleMania 17. Here's the proof.
What
of
did I
I'm
do?
saying.
What did I say? I forget what I said.
This is what you said. This is what you said. That you pointed out, and this was a very good point on your part. We were talking about the Battle Royal that they did on the show, and you said that was the first time, and ironically this was right at the end of the Attitude Era, but it was the first time in the entire Attitude Era they engaged in nostalgia. The entire Attitude Era was built around guys who were nobodies as far as being big stars before the Attitude Era started. So for right now...
what's funny, too, now that I think about that, a lot of that coincides with the death of WCW. Because so much of the WWF's success during the Attitude Era was, we're new, we're hip. Because that's what they had to do. Because when they started on that plane, WCW had all the big name stars, and they had to basically say, you know what, these guys are old. We used to have them when they were all in their prime, and we're going to create a bunch of new guys.
And Mania 17 happened mere days after WCW folded, and it was the beginning of the, and I'm saying this in an image sense, it was the image of, we own everything now. We are the custodians of pro wrestling now.
And here's the thing. From their perspective, it didn't make sense when so much of their history was working for the competition at the time.
Right.
To reference that history.
Right.
So it behooved them to shat on their history, so to speak. Now it doesn't and they shouldn't shat on their history right now. I think right now they're in a position where they're the only game in town. I've always said what would behoove them the best was to inject the two boom periods. 80s style booking where it's based in the long term. You've got long, it doesn't all have to be Hogan Savage. That's once in a generation type stuff. But, where you can let stuff breathe. You don't have, it's not the Monday Night Wars where you've got to just be so awesome this second.
Right.
Mixed with the 90s attitude. Where, because a lot of the stuff when you watch the 80s, okay, it's fun, it's nostalgic, but it's like, dear God, with this. Like, Ricky Steamboat learning to regain his voice in those vignettes would not get, the man would be booed out of the building if he did.
And I'll tell you what, we're really stretching this whole macro thing before we go to the micro, but let me make one more point on this here.
Well, we only have 3 matches to talk about in this show.
Something that is a potentially very healthy development once the WWE Network starts up here. This talk, and now that it's been shelved for later in the year, if you remember, what were they smoking at the time? It was supposed to have been on the air at the time of WrestleMania 28. Good thing they didn't try to do that. They pushed it back to November.
That seemed like a dumb idea. I think that was one of those things that Vince McMahon, I think, wanted to challenge himself.
Right.
And probably all of his people were like, oh, my God. Like, okay, we'll try. And then, a week later, Vince is like, what was I thinking? Right.
And that's why it took them a while to come around. All right, it's supposed to start now, I guess, in November or the fall or whenever. But here's the thing, though.
If it started by next year's WrestleMania, I'll be impressed.
So I don't know. All right, well, we're talking long-term booking and what can be done to make WrestleMania better and everything like that.
By the way, this show did very well. Just so people, we're going to talk about that.
But critically, it could have been a hell of a lot more than it was, and I think that's something you and I are both going to be talking about here. At least I am. I know you agree that it could have been better than it was. I thought you did, anyways. I
It
don't want to
was
speak for
a
you.
fringe, I believe. Do you have
You
your
said
notes?
fringe top 10 in your
fringe
email
top
to
10.
me.
It was towards the bottom of.
But that's because at least 14 or 15 WrestleManias were pure dog crap. I mean,
that's a harsh comment.
Well,
I mean,
don't know.
I don't know about that. I only think there have been a couple, dog crap WrestleManias. I mean,
Okay.
there have been some that are average or subpar,
Okay.
but I mean, to call half of them dog crap, I think is certainly stretching.
Our old associate Paul Belfi, who immediately afterwards I saw on Facebook called us a top 5 one.
That's preposterous. That is preposterous.
Yeah, I do not agree with that.
Here are the
Mr.
WrestleManias
Boschus.
I can definitively say are better. 3 and 17. All right, let's break it. Remember how I
I'm
talked
I'm
about.
looking at your list right here. We'll see how many you're
Oh,
going to
good.
get right.
Okay, that's right. Okay, I put that at the bottom of the thing.
Yes.
3 and 17, as I said, are a standalone top tier.
Yeah.
The next group is 10, 14, and then 19 through 21.
Yes. You said 20, 21, 19 in that order.
Okay, depending on what day and what I've smoked recently, those bottom 3 can always shift around. They're all the same era. 10 and 14 to me are definitely the third and fourth best.
Okay.
So we've got those 7, if I'm counting correctly, at the top. Okay. This WrestleMania just passed was at the bottom of the next tier. I did not like it as much as first of all, let me just say
you
one
put
thing.
it above 8. The next
Okay.
tier was 5 deep. You put it above 8.
Okay. Let me make one thing clear.
Yeah.
I definitely liked it a lot better than last year. It was definitely okay. I don't think there's anyone who's going to.
Last year sucked a knob.
Okay.
Last year was horrible.
Again, horrible seems strong. Let's not give into that hyperbole, Skip Bayless. Okay, all right. But that was just good.
Well, just based on what it could have been. Last year had really
everyone's
good.
what could have been.
Let's have a CM Punk Randy Orton match where the entire storyline is built around Randy Orton having a bum leg instead of these two guys going out and tearing the house down.
Okay,
ridiculous.
Could that have helped? Yes, but in the long run, whatever. But anyway, this WrestleMania was definitely better than last year's, but it was not as good as 2 years. 2 years ago, I really liked that one.
26 you had at the top of that tier. You said 26, 24, 23, 28, and 8 as your next tier of 5.
I think that's right.
Okay.
I think this WrestleMania was very much along the lines of 23 and 24. 23,
okay.
Which, by the way, this rumored to have beaten that number.
Yeah.
Okay, it relied on some, 23 and 24, like this WrestleMania. I think that they're very comparable for a number of reasons, just in quality, and they kind of relied on kind of some, some tricks, some old, wrestling tricks about, 23 obviously drew a huge number based on, whether you want to admit or not, Vince and Donald Trump putting their hair up. Okay,
horrible storyline.
Yeah, but it drew a big number. Okay, I mean, 1.2 million wrestling fans probably can't be wrong. You might think so, but I don't know if they can be. So you might have think now, again, it's very perfect, okay? Because in that moment, it draws a lot of interest. But given the participants, one is, unfortunately no longer with us, and the other guy is now a fringe MMA fighter.
Yeah.
Okay, it did nothing for the actual participants, that gimmick. But in that moment, in that vacuum, it did well. And 24, what did they do? What was the big selling point there? Wrestling fans will say, oh, it was Ric Flair's last match. But realistically, the big selling point was the inclusion of Floyd Mayweather Jr. on the card.
Yeah, again, it's a big show. Yeah.
Again, he came in and he beat their talent.
Yeah.
Okay? And, again, for one night, that drummed up a lot of interest. But for the other 11 months, okay, what do you do now?
Right.
And this WrestleMania was very much like that.
Yeah.
It was very good in the moment. Certain parts were... But it probably, and we're going to get into this when we talk about Rock Cena, certainly, it does not do a lot of justice for the 11 months of the year, which I kind of think brings this thing full circle.
Right. Before we get to the micro, let me finish this last macro point, and that being, I think the WWE Network is going to help greatly in what if they follow through on one of the plans they're talking about in terms of long-term booking. And I'll tell you why. Because you didn't agree with me that there would be, or could be, or that it was even possible to do a return to Clash of the Champions. I was telling you on one of the podcasts previously.
I said that once?
You said, look, it'll never happen. It'll never. You can't go back to 6
realistic.
or 8. All right. Well, here's the thing, Kyle. If they're going to take a lot of the B pay-per-views and put them on WWE Network only, which is what they're talking about doing, you accomplish the same thing. You don't have to push a buy rate, because there's no buy rate. It's just the people who already are subscribing to your channel. Theoretically, you want to get more people to subscribe to your channel, but that will lead to more long-term booking. All right, because if you only have to worry about selling WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, Royal Rumble, and maybe 2 other ones, depending on whatever they might be.
That was the mentality behind the split brand of pay-per-views.
Yeah.
Remember that, that the Raw storylines, the SmackDown story will each get 2 months to breathe.
Right.
And it kind of worked, but unfortunately...
Yeah.
It kind of never materialized, maybe because the problem with the way they split it is there's just not enough talent on each side.
Right.
They're just not creative enough. John Cena's always got to be in the mix, or this guy's always got to be at the top of the card, rather than say, let's just have, these guys, we have this really hot program. Let's put them on the top. Let's make that the marquee match, even though it's not maybe a title, I don't know, I'm just throwing something out. Remember when Undertaker Mick Foley Buried Alive main event at a pay-per-view? It was even named Buried. It was October 96.
Right.
It's okay, we don't have a strong world title program right now. Let's make this the main attraction. Now, granted, that drew nothing, but so maybe it's a bad example. But to me, that's the way they should do it, where you can't have John Cena be the most important thing every month.
That's true.
I just don't know if they're going to do that. I don't have the confidence.
Well, we kind of talked already a little bit about Teddy Johnny. I know that we kind of disagree on the importance of that. We
didn't talk about it here.
I was glad to see. I have a hard time keeping track of what was on air and off air at this point. But anyways, all right. No, look, we'll just because I agree with your point that we should probably just talk about the top matches and stuff. Again, could it have been done better? Of course,
Teddy Johnny.
Teddy Johnny. Okay. But I mean, look, and the face team was incredibly weak. I was just glad to see the heels in the spotlight in a strong. It was a storyline that was over, and it was over in large part because of John Laurinaitis' real life d-bag character translating so well to the screen.
He's doing a good. Say what you will about John Laurinaitis, definitely sucking at his job a lot worse than Jim Ross did, but he's over as an on-screen character right now, and he does a very good job.
David Otunga still has a long way to go in the ring, but as a character,
he's horrid in the ring.
But as a character,
did you see him last Monday?
Yeah.
He screwed, he made it. He might as well have just written on a piece of paper and put it on the camera. Santino Marella's going to put his leg on the ropes, folks. He screwed that spot up so bad. It was almost embarrassingly bad.
The thing in the long run,
his character's not bad though.
His character is awesome.
And he has a very nice physique.
Well, you know what? I was just about to say that physique could be the downfall of him in the long run, and I'll tell you why. Because the fact that he is...
By the way, sorry for ruining your pen cap. I'll give you a new one.
The fact that he is such a good character is a trap. Because what would you say about somebody under normal circumstances? Just make him a mouthpiece. Well, they're not going to take a guy with a physique like that and just make him a mouthpiece. That's the problem. That dude needs to lose 100 pounds of muscle tomorrow if he wants to have a long-term career. Because then they can shrink him down, make him a manager type, and keep him over.
Yeah, I don't see him
they'll never let him just be a mouthpiece, dude. Never.
No, not with that physique.
No.
And you're right. I don't see him getting to the top of the card based on his in-ring ability or lack thereof.
No, but I mean,
here's the thing with this match. I just want to hit this.
Okay.
It was over.
Yeah.
I think if you look at the matches on this show, that I could certainly argue that this was the 4th most over match.
Okay.
With the Rock, Cena, Triple H, Taker, certainly being well ahead of everything else. And then Punk Jericho, solid number 3.
Yeah.
This was number 4. But I think this was a wasted time. I hate the general manager storyline. To me, I don't think the wrestlers, the crew, got any rub out of this whatsoever.
But I wanted to see them get featured. Better than not have them be...
That T-shirt thing was real lame, and I thought basically made them nameless and faceless. And I would rather... Because, first, I think even, the rubiest of rubes...
Yeah.
Knew which side was going over here.
Yeah.
I would have just preferred them one week to, somebody, whatever, some figurehead, it doesn't matter who, come on and say, you know what, Teddy Long hit the bricks.
How would you have gotten Dolph Ziggler a Sweet Mania match? Or Miz? Or Jack Swagger?
Ideally, I would like to, let's pair Dolph Ziggler up with some decent working baby face and give him some time. But you're right. They're not going to do that.
Or if him and Swagger had the tag pennies. I keep waiting for them to do that. That would be an awesome tag team.
I agree with you on that. But
instead of wasting them on guys who are on the pre-show, that is they've now unified the belts and they're still worthless.
Yeah, that is an issue, but
they control it. They don't have to be worthless. Their belts are worthless because they deem them to be worthless.
Again, none of the guys. This was just like, to me. Do you know what this was? This match?
What?
It was like a battle royal. Basically, it's like, all right, let's find just some big match that we can get a lot of guys on the card.
Yeah,
and largely. Not just largely, none of the performers got a rub out of this match. This match served one purpose.
Might have started to redeem Miz a little bit.
I disagree.
You don't think so?
It did nothing.
Okay.
This match served one purpose and one purpose only, and it's the purpose it should, to make John Laurinaitis the general manager of both shows.
Right.
And to me, they did not need to have a WrestleMania match to do that.
Okay.
That's my thoughts only.
All right. Well, I mean, it is kind of historic to have the same general manager on both shows. They haven't done that before.
I don't think that means anything.
Okay. Well,
I think the general manager.
He's going to say the same played out authority figure on both shows, putting down the faces, and stupid. It's too formulaic.
John Laurinaitis is a funny character, but
he shouldn't be. He's just straight standard issue heel authority figure.
Yeah, it's just a role.
There's a way.
He's playing a role that's been played before by a bunch of non-wrestling heels. He's good at it,
right?
But at the same time, I just think that the whole general manager. I think the split world championships. I think the brand split in general is just played out. The idea that these shows need a general manager is kind of lame. Now, what's he going to do? I mean, you're right. I mean, he's not going to be on TV,
right?
I guess he could be a man. I mean,
how's he going to have a draft? You wrestle for me on this show. You wrestle for me on this show.
The draft is another thing that's stupid. Don't do that.
Yeah,
don't even waste my time with that.
That is ridiculous. But no, I mean, they just, instead of standard issue heel authority figure, just have him be more like what he was in the beginning. Corporate D-bag weasel type character.
Exactly. He doesn't have to have. I mean, I guess the authority does help somewhat, but
But unless he is out there, like, they want him every week twirling his figurative cartoon mustache, and that's just too cookie cutter for him.
And we'll get to this later. I don't like his inclusion in the Lesnar-Cena storyline at all.
That's the desperate attempt at babyface Cena. Desperate.
Yeah. That's what that reeks. So, I was not, whether you talk, there were only, this was a 3-match show.
Yeah.
3 matches were very good on this show. The rest was completely pointless and doesn't even bear talking about, with the exception of one match, obviously, and it was a match that had the internet up in arms at the time.
Well, let's get that out of the way. The one that should have been on that level, but it wasn't. And a throwaway, it was the opener. If you blinked, you missed it.
I was in shock when this happened. And I can understand why people were upset, because there is a portion of the audience that probably did come to see Daniel Bryan wrestle.
And what about all the rubes that were seeing him for the first time and had heard about him? What about that?
I don't think they had heard of him. I think the. Well, what do you mean? Like the people?
Like the world champion.
Okay.
Who's this world champion guy that's wrestling on the show? Daniel. I thought I heard somebody talk about this Daniel Bryan.
I think those people didn't know Daniel Bryan from Daniel Boone.
You don't think the Harpo's crowd really had much familiarity?
I'm talking about the crowd that bought this show because of The Rock and because they were fans of the Attitude Era, and the people that basically got catered to for the show, the people who basically were like, we want to remember how good wrestling used to be, and we don't really give a damn up. We're not going to watch the other 11 months, so we want that point reiterated. And Daniel Bryan to them, first of all, when I watch wrestling with that crowd, I watched with a couple guys who had not watched the pay-per-view in a while.
Right.
A lot of people they're like, wait, why is the World Championship match first? So to me, again, look, I could see why people were upset, but I kind of almost want to say, if watching Daniel Bryan wrestle was the main reason you paid all of that money to buy tickets and go to WrestleMania, then I don't want to be mean, but I'm going to be, I guess, then shame on you. If you thought, then you're just a more idealistic person. Like, if you thought that Daniel Bryan...
I thought he might go over Horror of Horrors. I thought he might go over.
I
hoped so.
I did too, but I did too.
All the heat was on Sheamus going into this.
Yes.
Sheamus got the better of him every week.
Yes, I'm not disputing that, Ricky, but here's the thing. What you can't dispute, this match was not going to get 20 minutes.
No.
Okay?
Nor should it.
No. Nor should it have. Now,
12's not too much to ask for. You look at all the other chode matches that got at least 5 or 6 or 7.
yeah, but, I mean, what are you going to do? Cut and give those matches no? I mean, you're right. I guess a lot of people said...
2 minutes to the women's match, 3 minutes to Randy Orton Kane,
yeah,
5 minutes to Big Show,
you could.
Cody
you
Rhodes.
could, but again, in the long...
Big Show Cody was a squash anyway.
Yes, I know.
Why make
and
it an
people
extended
said
squash?
That. I know a lot of people have said that, and I'm
Yeah.
not disagreeing. But I'm saying...
That's the one that should have been 5 seconds.
Here's what I'm saying. We're splitting hairs, though, okay?
Okay.
Here's the thing. Do I agree with what they did? No. But at least they did something memorable. I actually think that what they did to Daniel Bryan here was better than if he lost in, say, a 5 or 10 minute match.
Potentially.
Because it would have been meaningless nonetheless. It would have been an opener. It wouldn't have been a great match where he could have showcased his skills.
They don't blow it, but they seem determined to ignore the fact that he is the martyr of the people. They're determined to ignore it. They're piping in booze. They're living in Bizarro world. They have not.
Maybe I'm going to become
reality.
the idealistic person here. Okay, what I would say, I think that this might wind up being the best thing ever for Daniel Bryan that ever happened.
If they play it right, it will be.
Now, you're right. You're right. They could screw it up. It's kind of like, when people tell me Tom Heckert is going to do the right thing next Thursday for the Cleveland Browns. It's like, what world are you living in, pal, okay? All right? But the backlash against what they did, because the way it went down, is so vicious. The next night on Raw, and by the way, I think you and I need to just take a quick moment to acknowledge how great that crowd was.
Yes.
That was, to me...
God bless you, crowd. Can you go to Raw every week? Because I know the one in D.C. sure sucked.
Yeah. That was one of the classic Raw. I would love one time to go through the great individual Raws.
Okay.
That, to me, was almost like a top 10 Monday Night Raw ever.
That probably was.
Okay, that crowd, because they, and again, maybe it's a vocal minority. Again, it's a smart mark heavy kind of crowd because the people they were at a lot of people at WrestleMania. It's a national crowd, well traveling, but the way they crapped all over that Sheamus and Alberto Del Rio segment was so glorious. And the WWE is stubborn and as frustrating as they can be at sometimes with the creative process. This yes thing, man, is taking on a life of its own. It's the new what, I think. It could be the new what. It could actually be the thing that gets rid of what. And Steve Austin didn't need to resort to what. Yes could actually, normally it's the kind of thing that would kind of annoy me a little bit, but it doesn't, because it could be the mechanism that gets Daniel Bryan, unless if they just go, they're so hell-bent on not. I just think, to me, they did make him a world champion.
Right.
I think that this could wind up being, in a couple years, at least I'm hoping, again, maybe I'm being realistic, this could be his Triple H at WrestleMania 12 moment, where you look back, okay, he got squashed real bad, it did him no favors whatsoever, but you know what, he persevered, and he's a star now.
I hope so.
I can only hope that's the best. But the backlash, to me, had he lost in a 5 or 10 minute match, people would have been like,
right.
Because the fact that he was squashed in the way and they didn't get to see him,
right,
that energized his fan base in a way that a loss in a 5 or 10 minute pointless match wouldn't have done.
Right.
So I just think that, moving forward, that this is not the disaster for him that it was made out to be right away.
I dearly, dearly hope not. It was funny because I know I was annoying some folks with my indie hipsterism here, grumbling about it at various points in the time.
He was not going to get the platform to show what kind of worker he was here regardless. People have to understand that.
That's probably true.
If I thought that... Now, if you would have done this, like, say, with Punk Jericho,
right,
that's different. That's stupid, and they wouldn't do that.
Right.
But this was not... people get hung up, this was a world title match. Look, there's 2 world championships now, which is stupid, and I'm going to say that as many times as I can, work it in. It's not... This was not like a world title... The world title matches today, for even Punk Jericho, which is the more marquee world title match,
right,
Look, the 2 world title matches were not one of the top 2 matches on this show.
No, they weren't.
Okay, so, I mean, it speaks volumes. And, people say right now the World Championship, it's not even involved. Punk is kind of an afterthought on some of these Raws even. So, yeah, okay, yes, it was a 18-second world title match.
Right.
To me, you're just taking the world title match concept too
right.
literally when you say that. To me, I really hope now and here's the thing, I don't think it hurts him any worse than it would have had he lost in 5 or 10 minutes either. Like, I don't think like the Rubes were, their big thing was that they were hoping, maybe they are stupid. Maybe I'm giving them too much credit. I think they did kind of want them to chant. Wasn't there like some talk like chant 18 seconds at them? That will never happen.
Yeah, never.
That if they really think that's going to happen, then I got some, I got some farmland in Jersey that I could sell you.
Yeah.
Okay,
or stuff harvested off the farmland at any rate.
Okay, if the WWE generally thinks that they are going to get this 18 seconds thing over like a you tapped out Kurt Angle thing,
never.
No, it will
never.
That will not happen.
People will not do that.
It had the opposite effect,
right?
And hopefully, like we talked about when we talked about the 97, 98 era, where they did react in a positive and mature way when things maybe didn't go their way or the way they had planned. They were able to take kind of these freak occurrences and spin them into gold. Hopefully they can do that here.
Hopefully
it remains to be seen. I mean, I was not, when this happened, I was kind of irritated.
Right.
But I wasn't so irritated like some of these other people. Like, this is the most disgraceful moment in professional wrestling. Okay,
because I was doing that during the show. Like when the broads got like 6 minutes for their match, I was like, they give them 6 minutes and they won't give Daniel Bryan. I know I was annoying a couple of folks with that.
In a literal sense, you're right. From a meritocracy perspective, you're right. But they brought in that celebrity who wasn't. I mean, who's a real B-level celebrity anyway. That Maria Menounos or whatever her name is.
The funny thing is, I read something in the sheets before that they were like shocked. Because they were for a company that drinks their own bathwater about their own talent. Apparently, it was either Vince or somebody else was like, "Holy crap, she's actually much hotter than any of our divas." They were like very surprised by that.
Okay,
yeah.
But again, this match, this Daniel Bryan Sheamus match, was not going to be any kind of meaningful platform. It would have been great if he would have won and kind of continued the gimmick he was doing.
Yeah.
Okay, from that perspective, here's the thing. Here's where my opinion, I think, differs from a lot of people. If he's going to lose, then I don't really give a damn how he... I honestly would have rather him lost like this than in a meaningless 5-10 minute match.
Well, something that...
I'm more... the only thing that really angers me about it is that he lost.
Right.
But the way they did it, because it is somewhat memorable for not the reasons they want, it's people were upset about it. It's going to work out for him.
Right, and it's a springboard to potential mega face stardom if they take it. I just don't have faith in them.
Had he lost in a meaningless 7-minute match, the outrage I don't think would be as severe.
No, that's true. That's true.
So I don't know.
By the way, this match and this one started the show. We're only going to really focus on a couple other ones here. But I should mention that I did what I said I was going to do in the 9th part of our 9-part History of WrestleMania mini episodes, that I ordered this on my laptop when I was at my baseball draft. These guys persisted. My league persisted in having the baseball draft that night for my fantasy league. So did that.
Who runs this league? Bud Selig? Sounds like something out of his administration.
Fellow FDH Lounge dignitary Dave Adams, who it was a letdown.
It sounds Gary Bettman-esque. Your boy.
It kind of does. I should tell you this here too. Some as if fantasy baseball humor isn't nerdy enough. My partner
sincerely doing a 9-part history of WrestleMania.
Well, you're going to like this one. So we were picking 11th in a 12-team Serpentine draft.
Yes.
First round pick at 11 was Carlos Gonzalez. Second pick coming back around was Adrian Gonzalez. And I'm looking at the board coming up on the third. And I knew who was going to be there for us. Highest rated player on the board because I knew we had him rated higher than a lot of other folks did. Adrian Beltre. I said to my partner, Paul Pasick, he's a member of the FDH Academy of Arts and Sciences. By the way, we have another Pantheon coming in a few weeks here. But I said to Paul, holy crap, look at this. Our team is Adrian squared, Gonzalez squared.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Typical nerdy fantasy baseball humor.
Yes. There's something there.
The epitome of that, yes. So, again, the only other ones that really counted much, which one do you want to talk about next? Do you want to go chronological or?
Let's just talk about Punk Jericho because...
Okay. So we're working our way up in order of importance then.
Yeah, kind of.
Right.
Yeah, well,
and with the other,
we're going to build. We're going to build.
With the other indie superhero,
things like
Punk, who made it to the mainstream.
Me, matches like Kane Orton, Big Show Cena,
Pardon
me, Big Show Cody, the women's match. They just fall into what we talked about. They didn't really matter going in.
Well, the Big Show does now has held every active WWE title, Kyle Ross.
And no one gives a damn about that. It's just something to say, okay? Yeah, let's go to Punk Jericho.
Okay.
Because I don't think there's a ton of... I liked this. Well, here's why I want to talk about this. Because I want to be more positive, because then I'm going to be critical. I want to inject a little positivity into this, okay? Because I think this is kind of sticking with Brian. I liked this match, I think, more than most people did.
You liked it more than I did.
I thought it was like a 4-star match.
But see, I the idealist that I am, these guys, to me, the floor should have been 4.5 stars. These guys should have had one of the greatest build-ups. I thought the build-up for this thing was a lot flatter than it should have been.
I did too.
The pedestal that I put Punk and Jericho on, we were hearing before, as soon as it became clear that these were going to be the two guys going, everybody was like, oh my God. These guys, with their creative minds and their input in this will be one of the greatest title match build-ups in history.
Did you think that was going to happen?
I thought the potential was there.
See, here's
did.
See, you're talking idealistically.
And it was a diluted
You're talking about idealistically. I'm going to talk realistically here. I thought Punk actually, and somebody brought this up. It may have been the Melts or something like that, but I think Punk actually made a mistake in that promo when he talked about how this could be the greatest match of all time. I think that was a mistake. God bless his soul. Because
he was only saying what we expected, though.
Yeah. Now, could it be? Yes.
I respect his competitive spirit for saying that.
I do too. But given that this was third from the top in terms of importance, I did not even believe that this would be the best match of the night. And I guess maybe that's where we differ here, that our expectations were different.
Yeah.
I was, to be honest... Now, was this as good as it could have been? No.
4 stars says it all there, because this could have been 5. These guys can give you 5.
5? Really? That's high.
They can give you...
everything's got to be right. 5 stars, I don't give those out a lot right
You're questioning whether Punk and Jericho together, working at their best on the perfect night, could give you 5?
That's a perfect... Let me tell you something.
Jericho's a better worker, is he not, than Cena, and Punk got 5 stars out of Cena last summer.
But you know what?
Atmosphere was a lot of that.
Okay.
Atmospherics was a lot.
Let me just frame, when you say 5-star match, let me put something in perspective here. In the history of this company, I'm not trying to say like I'm some cool guy or something, the MLB. I've given 10 matches in the history of this company 5 stars.
But what I'm saying is there's such a select list of guys where you say this guy and this guy can give you 5 stars.
Here's the thing. Okay.
And they're two of the guys.
You can't predict a 5-star match. You can't. What's funny is, here's the problem.
You can be idealistic and hope for it.
The only time that I can remember, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong and cite another example, the only time I've ever remembered them booking any company booking a 5-star match, basically with the build being like, this will be the greatest professional wrestling match ever, and then delivering, was the Flair Steamboat Series.
True.
And that was 2 unreal performers getting the platform.
True.
These guys were not going to get the platform they needed to do 5 stars.
I did see a 5-star match at the Masonic Auditorium in Cleveland some years ago. Rob Van Dam, Jerry Lynn at a house show. ECW house show.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I have not seen it. I can't give it
5-star match.
ECW again.
But Lynn and RVD could give you that on any given night.
What did they do? They were given a platform to do it.
Yeah.
When, I remember, the classic example I always think of when you're just this is such a great match, what you're watching, and it really wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, this Punk Jericho, and thought I was going to be positive here, but was much better than the match I'm about to mention, was Shawn Michaels' Mr. Perfect from SummerSlam '93. Remember that match? It was billed as this is going to be the greatest intercontinental title match of all time. And on paper going in, the bill was pretty good. Okay, remember Perfect cost Michaels the match against Jannetty, and he wins it back, whatever. And it's that had a lot more momentum, I think, going in than even this Punk Jericho match.
That had to be very confusing in a pre-smart time for people, because like your average Mark fan would be like, Mr. Perfect and Shawn Michaels, what's so damn great about that?
Well, see, I disagree. I don't think
the average mouth-breathing fan.
I think that's what made it so disappointing. I think your average Tom, Dick, and Harry were expecting a great match.
I think the average fan was probably scratching their heads saying, I don't know why they would say these guys are so great. I'd rather see a 350-pound guy in there.
And not in 93. Maybe in 87, but not in 93.
All right. It was starting to
But my whole point is that when you set the bar so high and aren't prepared to give them the necessary platform,
right,
you're setting yourself up for failure. And I think that's
why... They got 22 or 23 minutes, so who are you faulting here? I'm going to put it on Punk and Jericho.
They did get off to a bit of a slow start, some people said.
Yeah, that's true.
But I enjoyed this. And here's an interesting point that I want to make. Buddy of mine, I'll give him a shout out, Mike Johnson, okay, not a man who makes it any kind of point to watch wrestling on a weekly or monthly basis.
Is it the same guy that writes for PWI?
No, it's not. No. That's a better-looking individual, too, I could say. But my buddy, as a matter of fact, no, I take that back. He had come over and watched that disappointing SummerSlam they did last year. But I think he did just because he was bored. He's like, yeah, I've been working a lot, so whatever. I don't want to go over this guy's life, but I mean, he's like, I've kind of missed the old days when me, you, and Josh would watch a wrestling pay-per-view. Let's just do it. He was just in the mood to do that. Like, he didn't know what he was going to watch.
Can we get some in-depth reminiscing on days gone by?
No, no, unfortunately, we can't. Thank you very much. That book has been sealed. But
Judge Stone.
Yeah. But he knew what the top match was here and the top two. Like, he knew what he was watching. He is the standard guy that wanted to watch the show because The Rock was coming back, okay? And why I'm going into this long soliloquy and bringing this individual up is not just because he's a friend, but he said during this match, and it was very interesting because it'll be even more interesting when we talk about the next match.
Okay.
It's like, let's see him, because this brings to your point about you need to hook those kind of people, the Mike Johnson of the world, into the current crew. And do you know what he says in the middle of the match?
What?
And trust, this was not an academic wrestling crowd, okay? This is not a guy who goes on the... This is not a guy who even knows what, who Dave Meltzer is. He doesn't know Dave Meltzer from Davy Crockett. He doesn't know, what F4WOnline.com means. If you told me, like, what is that?
Okay.
Okay. Do you know what he says to me in the middle of this Punk Jericho match? He's like, this CM Punk, and he remembered him from the previous summer at SummerSlam. He's like, this guy's a pretty good wrestler. He's like, I think I like this guy.
Well,
and they had, I think, under the conditions, a fine match. I'm going to tell you something right now, and this is going to, because I really don't have anything else to say about this match. I was glad Punk won. I don't think that the gap between this match and Triple H Undertaker was that much, particularly given the platforms they were given. To me, can we transition? Did you have something to say?
No,
I want to transition into end of an era.
That's fine. The only thing that I want to say is just to reinforce the point about Punk and what your friend Mike had to say about him. I think what his observation backs up what I've always said as far as it's the company that overthinks things, not the smart fans. The company draws these lines between these are the people that appeal to the internet geeks and these are the people that appeal to the masses.
Yes.
They're overthinking it. CM Punk can appeal to everybody. Daniel Bryan can appeal to everybody.
Yeah, talent will always break down these barriers.
That's what I'm saying.
And see, that's why I want you to be careful when you're talking.
It's the danger in pigeonholing.
See, here's the thing.
Yeah.
That's why I kind of wanted to caution you and was raising my not the people's eyebrow, just my eyebrow at you when you were
later in the night.
When you were calling, your Dolph Ziggler's very good because see. But I'll tell you, remind me off air to tell you what I'm not going to say on this podcast.
Okay.
Because I was actually going to channel Stephen A. Smith and an argument he made that you would completely agree with. Okay. But we'll talk about that some other time because it is not fit for this podcast. Because golly, will this train come off the tracks?
All right.
Smart marks need to be careful about what cause they champion. You can't just start beating the drum for everybody.
I don't think I'm being indiscriminate in championing the greatness of Dolph Ziggler.
He is not at the level.
He's come a long, long way.
Okay, but he's not at the level of CM Punk and Daniel Bryan.
No, he's not, but he's like next level.
Yeah, but there's a huge divide. There's a huge divide.
I don't
to
think
me,
it is.
right now, if you're a smart mark trying to shatter that glass ceiling, and you need to just focus all your efforts on CM Punk and Daniel Bryan. Because you can't have everyone break through at once.
I think the divide between...
And Punk has broken through somewhat, and Bryan, I think, is going to. But there's still not... Punk, I think, is a made guy.
Yeah.
Bryan is certainly not. But here's the thing that... I don't know how I got started on this. But Punk, okay, with the talent exceeds...
Yeah.
And their perceptions of guys.
Yes.
CM Punk is the most talented guy on the roster.
Yes.
He is to me, not based on, I'm not saying that he should be this dominant world champion face of the company, because there are some legitimate concerns from a business perspective of Punk.
Okay.
When you send him to do these media things, he tends to not talk about wrestling. Okay. He wants to talk about, some Rancid album from 20 years ago. Okay. All right. I mean, that's not the best.
He's not good at staying on message. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, John Cena, as much as he's not a great worker, is good as a face of the company. I've come to accept that. But
but that hinders him as a babyface connecting with the crowd, because he is a corporate robot. And Punk is respected for being a renegade.
Well, we'll talk about that.
Yes,
the application of that. And that's why their dynamic works so well against one another.
Right.
It's kind of funny. Cena needs to get probably a little more credit than he did for that match in Chicago.
Right.
He was the perfect opponent for CM Punk that night last summer.
Yeah.
But CM Punk is a guy who I think is. I think this is an inarguable point. I don't know who would disagree with me. CM Punk, I guess, just to put an exclamation point on this soliloquy, CM Punk is still far more talented than what they still think of him.
Absolutely.
And I think that they don't realize how much people realize that.
Right.
Like, I mean, if my buddy Mike Johnson, who drops in maybe once a year to watch a wrestling pay-per-view, can, after 15, 20 minutes, goes, this guy's pretty good.
Right.
And he had seen him before. He was like, I think I've seen this guy. I've liked what I've seen from him.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the kind of perfect thing. So he's a guy that, and he's going to be, because he's crossed that threshold with his latest contract and things, but he still doesn't get the credit he deserves, and he didn't get the platform he deserved here against Jericho. But given the platform he was given, I thought this was a damn fine match.
Yeah.
And I don't think, and I'll be honest with you, granted, I'm a little biased. I like these two guys more than the Triple H Taker, even though Triple H and Taker did phenomenal jobs in their build-up because they were given a much better platform. And
they were.
There's a lot of history involved there that Punk and Jericho don't have, history of them being in the company, obviously. But to me, it's kind of funny. When you talk about being disappointed, I was more disappointed in Triple H Undertaker than I was Punk Jericho.
I wasn't, because of my expectations. And it's a thing.
My expectations for Triple H Taker is it had to be over. Like, some people were very high because given it's about the platform you're given. Triple H. Do we transition now?
Yeah.
Triple H and Undertaker were given a monster platform that, I'll be honest with you, you have to suck really bad not to have a good match, given the platform. I mean, you have to be awful. I mean, I can't think of any conceivable combination of wrestlers that would have a bad match in the platform they were given. Now, given their names, their history, the perception, the way they're perceived, the level of star they're perceived at, that helps, okay? Mm-hmm. Okay, obviously, you can have a very average match. They're going to have, because of who they are, a better match in that platform than Joe Blow versus, whoever, okay? But that said, I didn't think this was as good as last year's.
Okay.
My problem was, too, and see, this is where I did kind of get a little with, again, you and I talked about this, I think, in our preview, that I wanted the PG to be kind of ignored for this match, and I think it was. They did the hard way bleeding, and it's not. Again, it goes back to kind of what we started about. It's not sane, it's not healthy, but given the limited schedule of these two, I think it's okay. From a
I didn't want to see chair shots to the head, but anything other than that, I agree.
Chair shots to the back are pretty brutal, man. I mean, these guys weren't feeling too good. I bet the next morning.
No, exactly. Right. And I wanted to see. I'm with you on the blood. Let's see some blood.
Given their light schedules, these are not guys who are going to be on the road every night.
Right.
For one night, they could kind of thumb their noses at the
they
PG.
started off
and they
slow.
did. They did. But here's the thing.
But beyond that, I thought it was fine. I thought it was just fine. I mean, the first couple minutes, I was like, when are they going to get going? And yeah, there was some crappy overacting from Shawn Michaels.
I'm going
that,
to tell you, and you know me, I'm the biggest Shawn Michaels fan ever.
Yeah.
I hated his participation in this match. The only thing that was cool was that spot with him doing the sweet chin music into the pedigree to get a near fall.
That was amazing, and they actually had me at that point.
Yeah, and that's
they had a lot of us.
It was not quite as good as Triple H doing the Tombstone the previous year.
Right.
And let me just say one thing: this match was not as good as I don't know. Did I already say this?
Yeah,
I forgot.
but
okay.
And I agree.
This match was not as good as the WrestleMania 27.
Although I
wasn't.
don't agree. I thought this one was a little better.
Really,
I did.
I just don't. I thought.
They didn't really use the Hell in the Cell, though, and as was pointed out, the only purpose it seemed to serve was shielding the crowd from the weapons once they would get thrown away. That was it.
Yeah, and I don't know. And here's the thing. You'd think, again, not to give this guy any more airtime than he deserves, but my buddy Mike Johnson, you'd think he's the kind of guy from the WWE that, this is what he came back to see.
Well, he's like our focus group of like the casual fans,
yes.
So I'm interested to hear this. Yeah. And that's why I'm very heartened that he liked CM Punk.
He liked that match better than this match.
Okay.
I didn't. Okay, he did. You'd think it's totally reversed. Like, I'd be so desperate to, like, nitpick the one and, overpraise the Punk Jericho.
Okay.
Maybe I am still, I mean, given the last 10 minutes of my rambling, but I thought they were very close. He thought Punk Jericho was better. He thought there was he thought it was slow. Like, a lot of people love the drama, the slow build. He thought it was annoying.
Okay.
And maybe he kind of negatively influenced me, but he did not like. And my other, I got another, my old roommate Josh. I don't know if you ever met him. He's kind of like that in between level. Like, he knows more than probably any right-minded person should about the greatest sport of them all. But he does not subscribe to the Wrestling Observer newsletter. But
okay.
He's always got a good figure on the pulse of these things. He's not just a casual fan. He watches Raw every week. But the crew I was with was not as impressed with this as it seems even a lot of people on the net were, and that's surprising. This was a match that you'd think would appeal to that casual fan.
Well, not only
and
that,
my crew that I watched this with, and again, some people are influenced, but these are not. A couple of the guys who were there. They don't know CM Punk. They don't know that I. In 2003, 2004, before I ever did wrestling podcasts, when I watched him in Ring of Honor initially, thought, oh my God, this guy could be a huge star if he's given the right platform. They didn't know my opinion. I wasn't like, oh, you guys got to watch this CM Punk, he's so good, and you better like him, otherwise, I'm not.
That's what I brainwash people like that.
Otherwise, I'm not passing you this the rest of the show. But there was none of that going on.
That's not an idle threat.
No. But they did it. I thought, and again, I like to watch things again. I thought, here's the thing. I genuinely think rematches tend to be a little bit weaker than the predecessor usually.
That's why they loaded it up with all the accoutrements. Hell in the Cell, Shawn Michaels, and Baka Kiki's got the sledgehammer.
Yes, which makes it disappointing that this wasn't better. Because given the platform, given the Hell in the Cell, the involvement of Michaels, this should have been better than last year, and if you thought it was, then God bless you.
I think the accoutrements put it over the top from last year. The atmospherics.
I thought that it was, they relied too heavily on it. Now, I'm not going to go, my good old Bob Sacamano, Chad Repack, while he enjoys these kind of matches, anyone would, it's a very good, I'd give this match 4 1/4.
4 1/4? Okay.
It's a top 20 WrestleMania match.
Okay.
But it's, some people, top 10, I saw your boy, was like top 5 ever. No, that's preposterous. Okay, that's preposterous.
You lumping me in with boat shoes?
Yeah, okay. To call this a top 5 WrestleMania match ever is buffoonery.
I would certainly agree with that.
Okay.
The thing I will say about Belfie is that he's prone,
prisoner of the moment type stuff.
He's very knee-jerk on things.
Years
ago when we were doing the shows there,
Yeah, God bless him. He could watch it and be like, you know what, I probably overrated the time. So I'm not going to put
Well, you know what it always was, too? And I remember because there would be times, sometimes I would come in and sit on SNS, and sometimes he would, too. I just remember times when we would all be breaking out a post-game, and it was like, as harsh as you and I and Little Guy and anybody might be, he was always a little more forgiving than us, too, if you remember that.
Yeah,
he was always a little more...
Yeah, well, who knows? I mean, maybe that has some business, whatever.
No. I mean, I'll say this for him. There are things that he advocates against business.
Hi,
frankly.
Paul. By the way, hi, Paul. How you doing?
Paul. I mean, I will. Of all the things, I will give Belfie credit for that because there are times where you would expect him to be like, "Oh, I got to kiss their ass. I'm trying to do business with him now," and where he might be better served and not criticizing their product, and he just can't help himself.
Yeah, okay,
but he's naturally more optimistic about the product than you and I are.
Okay. Well, anyway, I thought that if you strip away the accoutrements, you don't have a lot here. I mean, great. You could say last year was a lot of kicking out of finishers too. But anyway, my buddy Chad Repack, will always tell you, and it brings to the point I said before: who couldn't have a bet? Now, again, because they're stars, they're going to be better than the average Joe Blow.
Not overthinking it.
No,
it's not anybody on the card that could have put on a match as good as these two guys.
No,
so
I'm
let's
saying
not say
but,
that.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying anyone. If you're doing like kicking out of finishers, all Japanish stuff, weapon use, and the match isn't good, then you suck. Okay? Like there is a certain level of quality.
But see, I think like 3.5 stars is the floor, and they were above the floor, so give them credit.
You're taking the words out of my mouth.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. But if you are creating an environment where the floor is 3.5 stars, then you're getting a very advantageous environment. And to me, the level, if the floor is 3.5 stars, it was a very good match. They certainly exceeded, but they only exceeded it because of who they are and the stage they were on.
Yeah.
I honestly don't think, and the Michaels involvement I thought hurt the match. I actually thought
there was intrigue to him getting choked out by the Undertaker because it was kind of like, okay, where are they going with this now?
I thought it didn't lead anywhere. I thought it was stupid. How about that for commentary? I thought it was. I'm going to tell you something right now.
It made me think a little. Okay, where are they going with this?
Yeah, well, they didn't go anywhere with it. Okay, you can think, but if it doesn't go anywhere, then they just wasted your time and your thoughts. Here's my thing. I'm going to say the unthinkable. Yeah. I thought Shawn Michaels made this a worse match than last year.
I didn't, but I thought that his
I'm in the minority.
The thing I will say too, and
he had the one good spot, but other than that, it just kept focusing. Oh, what do I do? And it's like, just effing rep the match, dog. Stop making these faces.
I'm with you on being a big Shawn Michaels mark in general, but I will point back through the history of his career when called upon to act or convey or whatever.
I mean, these guys aren't great actors. He's typically a very good. I mean, no one here is going to win an Oscar. He's
a first ballot Hall of Fame talent. He's overrated as an actor in a given situation.
I disagree.
Degenerate era Shawn was great because he was letting his true prick, drug-addled self come through at that time. That's nice. I mean, he just generally, when it's not part of himself shining through, he's just not very good at conveying something that's not true to that.
Okay, well, let me tell you something.
But he gets credit for being great at that, and I don't see him. And that's not a put
Let me give you a perfect example.
Awesome,
let me give you an example of Shawn Michaels, same role, being way better.
Okay.
If you want to see a match where Shawn Michaels completely added to a match as a special guest referee, do yourself a favor, kids.
Yeah.
Put on tape a little SummerSlam 97 when he was the referee for that Bret Hart Undertaker. The ending of that match, and it's a good match, but you know how I always talk about how a match can be really ruined or made by the finish?
Right.
I have never seen a match that was, and it was a pretty good match.
Right.
That was like it was like a 3. It was over a 3-star match. It was your standard Bret Undertaker affair.
Right.
But it was way enhanced. You remember the ending of that, right?
Yeah.
That was arguably one of the most brilliantly booked endings ever because for those who weren't around during that period, what they did was they had to set up a match where Shawn and Bret had the heat was kind of between them. The Undertaker was the champion, and him and Bret, there wasn't a ton of heat. It was Bret going for his title.
It was the Rock Cena Miz of the day.
Well, that's not fair. Undertaker was much more important than the Miz.
Yeah.
And they had built in this storyline that if Bret lost, he would never wrestle in the United States of America anymore. And no one believed. So basically, it was funny that, okay.
But that if Shawn screwed
hold on.
him. Okay.
So with that storyline, any right-minded, reasonable person is like, okay, Bret's obviously winning. They're not going to have him not wrestle in the United States again. Now, of course, today what they do is they'd have him lose and then completely renege on the stipulation.
Right.
Okay, but
I
that's
had my fingers crossed.
Yeah. But So they added Michaels to it, and he had a stipulation where he couldn't. See, I was intrigued from a smart mark perspective so much going into this match.
Right.
Because how they were going to do it. And this is when they did real creative finishes during that time period. Again, I liked the Hell in a Cell finish, Michaels and Undertaker. But they painted themselves into a corner where if Michaels favored the Undertaker in the match at all and tried helping him to beat Brett, he couldn't wrestle. So you know that could happen. So, okay, as the smart mark, and you're trying to do a little fancy, you're like, okay, well, this is crazy because Shawn's going to have to basically, Brett's going to win the belt, obviously.
Right.
It made sense for him to win at that point. He was really over.
Right.
And Shawn's going to count the 3. How are they going to do that? And they did that brilliant finish where Shawn and Brett started arguing, and Shawn said, screw this, I'm going to hit him with a chair. And he swung and he missed and he hit the Undertaker. And I'm bringing this back because his acting was marvelous. And from what the bar and the benchmark is in wrestling acting, if you remember, go ahead and watch that ending.
I've seen it.
He curses into the. Why did I do that in front when no one can watch? But he curses. He basically said the S word. I'm trying to watch my language here for your thing.
Thank you.
Here.
Appreciate it.
Okay, and he gets, and they're like, the announcer's like, he has to count. Remember, he can't not count. And he does that 1, 2, and he looks in Brett's eyes, and he's like, God bless it, I've got to get 3, and he just walks off and discusses. Watch that finish.
But here's, I guess you're making my point for me.
I am?
Yes, you are, and I'll tell you why. Because it came from a real place. Shawn hated Brett.
Oh,
Shawn
okay,
was
yeah.
making
So what you
Brett
said,
the champion.
You're right.
That was only half acting. Shawn was forced to count to make Brett the champion.
Okay, you're right.
And that's the whole thing.
See, but
Shawn, as an actor, disconnected.
Yes.
When his real place
right.
is disconnected,
You're right. You're
people think he's a great actor regardless.
No.
Shawn's great at channeling something that's real.
But that's true for all. That's true for all wrestlers.
That's
true for all wrestlers.
But
that's true for all wrestlers.
But he gets a reputation as a universal great actor, and he's not.
No wrestler is.
No. And this is not a put down of Shawn.
No.
First ballot Hall of Famer and great as an actor when there's
Maybe
real emotion.
Yeah, him and Ric Flair are by far the 2 best in-ring performers ever. But here's the thing. They just added him. It was the typical WrestleMania thing when it's like, well, he's a big star and he's got history with these guys, so his involvement.
It was a hook, like Hell in a Cell.
Yeah, but his involvement didn't add. His involvement to this was very indicative of this match. It was, let's put a lot of sizzle and parlor tricks around this match. Okay, Shawn's the ref. That's good. Let's involve him. He didn't add anything to it. And he not only did he, here's my problem with this, and where I disagree, I think, with people. Not only did Shawn not, well, he added the one spot, but not only did he not really add anything other than that, I thought he took away from the match. Well, compared to last year.
I thought it was a net plus, but maybe not a huge one. But the only thing he'll be remembered for, we always talk about how these things go down in the history books. At the end of the day, all anybody will remember as regards his participation in the match, curtain call 2K12 at the end, when it was him, Taker, and Triple H with a big group hug at the top of the stage.
A little kayfabe Kyle here. I don't know if I liked that.
Yeah.
Given the build-up, I don't know if I liked that, that they did that. Because the match was so vicious. I mean, it was kind of a cool moment, and I'm not, hating on it, but it just made it, what you just watched, seem even less authentic.
Well, here's the thing. Because you're looking at it from a different way than I am. To you, it's looking like when they're up there, Mark and Paul taking a bow at the end of the play. That's what it looked like to you, right? That it was like, we're going to break kayfabe. The men behind the characters are being saluted by the crowd. Here's how I looked at it. Maybe I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. I liked, to a certain
Fortune
extent...
feed!
Yeah. I
did like the inclusion of that song, by the way. Yeah. I was singing it endlessly during the whole thing. Fortune feed!
See, I like... And you got to be careful with working in the MMA stuff. But I like the culture of warriors on the battlefield. At the end of it, we gave the battle of our lives, dag nabbit. We left it all on the field. No 2 other men on God's green earth could have fought and exchanged no quarter as we did. I looked at it that way. It's interesting that you looked at it like 2 guys taking a bow at the end of a community theater show.
Yes.
There's different prisms for looking at this.
Because here's the thing.
Yeah.
it wasn't. If it was one of those things where they went in with this, there wasn't that mutual. This was not a match born out of mutual respect, really. I didn't view it. Maybe I just read.
But that's how it started last year, though.
Yeah.
We're the only two left.
Yeah.
Last of a kind, last of the breed.
Yeah, I get it.
To a certain extent, that was an
okay.
undertone.
Okay.
Now, maybe there was more hatred this year because of what came out of last year.
Yeah,
but to me, it was going full circle. It was a return to the respect from whence it.
Yeah, but they were trying to like kill. I don't know. They were trying to like just destroy.
Well, that's true too. The fact that Triple H.
I mean, they were really. I mean, to me,
sledgehammer shot to the head.
Yeah, I mean, they were doing those spots,
yeah.
and then it was kind of like,
okay,
it's over, and by God, I tried to kill you, but now I,
okay,
there seemed to be a bit of a leap of faith in there.
Yeah, that's a disconnect.
And Sean was just confusing, and I didn't.
I got nothing on that part. It's a disconnect because again, and they were selling it like. Sledgehammer shot to the skull. He would have killed him. He tried to kill him.
Yes,
you're right. You're right.
This match was. It was this match. They were during the whole build. During the actual match while it was going on, they were selling this like these men detest each other. These men want to just absolutely destroy, like leave the other guy laying. And then all of a sudden it was like. By God, we try to leave each other laying, but let's have a...
But the psychology of this is fascinating because I take even that to be the heat of the battle. That it became personal. It's probably not going to stay personal. And if I want to get to a really cheesy kayfabe perspective, if the Undertaker's the guy who, and again, and it was, I think they even indicated, they indicated the Undertaker didn't see that Triple H was going to try and brain him with a sledgehammer. But anyways, let's say that even he had seen that. You could always play it like, okay, well, the attempted murder victim won the match. He got his revenge.
Yeah.
Who are we to, if he wants to forgive and forget? Yeah. I don't know. But that's...
it's very good. I think a fringe top 20 match. It was not top 50.
Okay. But best of the card?
Yes.
All right,
It wins match of the night.
Yeah.
But was this match better? It could sneak into the bottom end. I don't think it was as good as last year, but it wasn't like I'm only giving it a quarter star off.
What would you have said back in your SNS days if I would have told you, and again, I always want to preface when I say this that I feel that I don't disagree with what you were saying at the time, but the impatience with the Undertaker, when's he going to get out of the way for the young guys? Whatever. If I would have told you that the Undertaker would have a stretch of match of the year candidates at WrestleMania years in front of him, what would you have said to me then, Kyle?
I wouldn't have believed you because the streaks, again, these things are so indicative of why we did all those WrestleManias in one podcast.
Yeah.
The streak is something that's so them and is so modern WrestleMania. We're not going to book... There were, Undertaker Kane, for instance, was a long, and some people say long, drawn-out storyline.
Yes.
For WrestleMania 14.
Yes.
Okay, that was the streak was not a selling point of that match. Okay,
right,
at all.
Right.
As a matter of fact, Jim Ross in passing might have said, "My God, the Undertaker's never lost at WrestleMania, folks."
Right.
Now. The streak is the selling point. It's like, can he win? It's something, again, that once-a-year thing.
Right.
We'll just who cares what The Undertaker's done the other 11 months of the year, and now he doesn't do anything the other 11 months of the year.
Right.
Which is fine. I like it that way.
Right.
I like the way The Undertaker's used now as a complete special attraction, because all he has at this point, because it was different in 06, he was still wrestling regularly.
Right.
All The Undertaker has... The only thing that is remotely interesting about The Undertaker is this streak. I don't care. I don't want to see him wrestle anymore during the year.
No, I don't either.
I mean, maybe once or twice. If they can come up with... See, here's the thing, and I think most fans agree with this. If you do something the other part of the year, make it meaningful. Make it something. Make him... That's when he maybe should come and put over somebody else. But for WrestleMania, I have no problem whatsoever with him wrestling once a year with this streak on the line against some major star.
But here's what I'd like to see, and I think it would throw a nice little addition to it. And since they showed, we're going to be segueing in a second here to the main event with Cena and Rock. But how that had a 12-month build, what I'd like to see with
this essentially did two. They just not as constant.
Yeah, so the seeds were planted. But here's what I'd like to see, and this would throw a welcome change into the way that they do things. What's the template now? Wait till you get to WrestleMania season, figure out an Undertaker opponent.
Yes.
I'd like to see a random Raw in like September. At the end of the match, I don't know, Undertaker comes out and what it was like gestures, whether Brock Lesnar or somebody like, oh my God, that might be his WrestleMania opponent for next year. Plant the seeds for the Undertaker's next match. That's a way to use him in between the 12 months, Kyle. That's how you do
mean, there's a lot of different ways you could do it because, unfortunately, there's not a lot of guys left. I mean, they made this the end of an era. There's not a lot of huge stars
I've
left.
always said, let's Cena end it. That would be massive heat.
Well, that was, and it's interesting. Let's transition now.
Okay.
Because that is one of, if you're going to do a John Cena heel turn ever,
yeah,
that is one of two good ways to do it. Because at this point, they've been so damn stubborn about the whole thing,
right,
that you have to make it special. You
Save that one for 30 if they go to Texas.
Yes.
Can you see that one in Cowboy Stadium?
Yeah, here's the thing. By the way, I'm going to Cowboy Stadium this fall.
Oh, nice.
Bears Cowboys Monday night. I'm very excited.
Wow.
I have been to Texas one time, but we won't talk about that on air at all. But there are two conceivable opportunities to make a John Cena heel turn, which would be a big deal.
Okay.
To do it right, quote unquote. One would be ending the Undertaker shit because that would piss a lot of people off.
Yeah.
The other would have been here on this show against The Rock. Let's talk about this match. I thought the match was good. I thought it was at least 3.5 stars at worst. But the big thing is I think creatively, I think they got too smart for themselves.
Horrible.
I'm not going to go horrible.
I'll say horrible. They just crapped on the last 8 years of business.
Yes,
and it's
but here's the problem.
If you're turning the page on it to a new era, I kind of get that. But they're not turning the page.
Yeah,
it's more of the same.
Yeah, I will admit, and we can talk about this more after we're done analyzing this match, because it certainly makes the fact that he just lost to The Rock and that he should lose to Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
And I'm praying he does. I mean, dear God, please. If they chop Brock Lesnar within 30 days of coming in, this company...
Here's what I'm guessing. Like Cena hits him with a shovel or something. It'll be some kind of out like that. That's what I'm thinking.
It is... I'm going to tell you something right now. I with wrestling, it's not to be taken serious. Part of the thing with me, I don't take it that seriously.
Right.
But
in a kayfabe sense, that's the only way, or a real sense.
In a kayfabe sense, it is inexcusable to have Brock Lesnar lose this match. There is no... If
Cena can't take another loss either, though.
Well, then they really booked themselves in a corner to that. To have a monster heel come out like that and lose, that is stupid.
But if he gets hit in the head with a shovel, that's,
I don't care if they have a jumbo... No, I'm not going to make that joke. But right. But I don't care if they hit him, with a jumbo jet airliner. Okay.
Yeah.
It is inexcusable for Brock Lesnar to lose this match.
But it's not going to kill the heat if Cena beats him in a cheap way. This is an Extreme Rules match.
No,
all
it's
objects
it's unforgivable. If Brock Lesnar loses, they're stupid.
But Cena can't lose, and he's the one sticking around long term. Shades of when Lesnar left on the last time.
Then I don't know. Then you know what? Have John Cena do a losing streak gimmick. He can't find himself, and he turns heel. That's better than if John Cena wins this match. They're stupid. And I'll come on if they do it some way that I'm not.
I just can't see where he can lose back to back.
Brock Lesnar cannot. You're right. He can't lose back to back.
No.
But Brock Lesnar can't lose this one. His first match for.
This is the epitome of book yourself into a corner.
So let's talk
about Brock afterwards.
Yeah, let's talk about Brock.
This was horrible.
I'm not going to go horrible because what they did is
this was Swerve-a-mania. Oh, they know the finish. Better change it. Same as with Kane and Orton. Who cares if we know the finish?
Okay, it was not same as Kane and Orton.
Of course it was.
No.
Oh, my God, they know the finish.
It means a lot different.
Who cares? I'll say it again.
No, Kane Orton is just who cares, okay? It didn't matter who won, okay?
Okay.
Who cares? This has long-lasting effects. Kane Orton, who gives a damn who won that match?
This has damaging
Referee
effects.
Jack Doan could have tombstoned both Kane and Randy Orton. It wouldn't have mattered.
This is very damaging to their product.
Well, let's see. I'll always give things a chance, but let me tell you something. What they did was, and it's interesting because basically, I think a large portion of the audience that came back to see, and basically they came with the belief that wrestling was better 8 to 10 years ago.
And the WWE just reinforced that.
And those people wanted that point reiterated. And by God, they got it reiterated, didn't they? Because
they did.
But here's what's interesting is they built this up as Cena. They did a good job of building Cena into this to the point where I think, the live crowd wouldn't have accepted it, but I think a lot of people were ready to accept this Cena. I remember going in, I'll be honest, I was shocked at this result. And I don't know if they're just rewarding the guy who drew the house, drew the number, or what. But
this was not the plan all along. I'll go to my grave believing that.
I don't know.
They might have changed the finish the day of the show.
Oh,
They've been planning this for a year, and they might have changed the finish the day of the show.
Who knows? I mean, I don't know. I'm not privy to that kind of stuff. But
I'll have to make some phone calls.
But I was shocked by the finish because it did basically reinforce what a large number of, like I said, the Mike Johnsons of the world, again, to bring this guy up, how's he's worked a third reference this, I don't know. He doesn't care about the point you just espoused. Mike Johnson believes, right, and he's right.
Okay.
Wrestling was better 8 to 10 years ago,
okay.
which it was. Okay.
And which the WWE just said, yeah, it was.
And
point well taken. You don't need to watch the rest of our shows because The Rock won't be around till the next WrestleMania. So see you next year, folks. That's what they did.
Yes.
This was horrible. This makes, for as much as you raged about it on SNS back in the day, this makes Hulk Hogan over Randy Orton at SummerSlam 06 look sane by comparison.
Disagree.
No.
Because they have an out with The Rock because, look, they booked themselves into another one of these corners.
They
and
did.
We'll talk about, okay, John Cena, and I don't care how many times they've done this and how many times they spin Bizarro World and this and that.
Yeah.
John Cena, and I just don't know if they were just hoping against hope that they could do it, and they realized, maybe to your point, they did change late in the game.
They did.
John Cena could not go over, and we talked about this, as a babyface in front of this crowd. He couldn't.
The crowd wouldn't like it, but, dude, when has the crowd ever liked the John Cena WrestleMania win?
That's
you
what
just
I'm saying.
Go on from
but
there.
that's what I'm saying. It is so. That's the problem
Business
I have with
as usual.
Cena.
Yeah.
But business as usual has been dumb. It speaks part of the reason that this. Look, say what you will about Bizarro World, Smart Marks. These people they don't know what the hell they're talking about. I don't give a damn what you want to say about the mouth breathers. Okay.
Yeah.
It does not speak well to your company when your number one babyface, the guy who's supposed to be your number one babyface, is consistently booed out of the building. It looks stupid.
When we get to our next thing, I'm going to address that on Lesnar and where I think they dropped the ball already, aside from rushing the match.
It looks stupid.
Right.
And when people say, they're like, wow, like, you're like, wow, I've never seen a performer
right
who, and once again, this is not, we're not going to go into the when should John Cena have been turned heel, should he have been
right
thing. Well, maybe we will in a second, but to have it always happen, and this would have been arguably one of the worst, I think. And to have it just looks bad, Ricky,
yeah, but it
to
would
always do it. And you're right, for them to kind of be like, okay, well, you're right. I guess it does look bad. And this was kind of a weird, given The Rock is not around, does not work a full schedule, this is a weird time for them to acknowledge it. But I think the fact that he was in his home, that it would have been real bad. That, look, this show did a huge number on pay-per-view, something else we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
And it drew a lot of people who don't watch the current product. These people bought this show, and I've heard this argument made, and I can't really disagree with it, although I'm not disagreeing with what you said either. These people bought this show to see The Rock come back and basically show John, here's a little Captain Kayfabe, show John Cena, show the world that wrestling was better 8 to 10 years ago. Because to pretend that, here's the thing. If John Cena won this match, does that vindicate the last 8? No.
It kind of does. Pro wrestling is all about image. Pro wrestling, because it is a work, the promotion can put out any type of construct that it wants.
How many people would buy that message? How many people buy that message? How many people do you like? I'm telling you, this Mike John.
Do you ever have a chance of building
like
the
I'm telling you
business
this,
again if the people don't believe it?
No, but
Nobody
here's what I'm
will
saying.
believe it.
Here's what I'm saying.
They've gone from 10% to 0%
This
that'll
Mike
believe it.
Johnson,
Yeah.
the world. You're not convincing him. There is nothing you can do. Could have done that night to convince him that wrestling is better now than it was 10 years ago.
Well, the way that this was supposed to have been built in the beginning was John Cena, through this program, earning the respect of The Rock. It was supposed to be a whole thing of, and at the end of it, The Rock shakes his hand. Okay, all right, you are a worthy representative for this generation. That is originally
but here's the problem.
Thought it was
See,
going.
you're thinking in the...
Good for business sense. Imagine that.
Well, I know, Ricky, but I know, Ricky, but you're... I'm not saying majority rules all the time, but the people don't care about that. And maybe they're wrong, but this live crowd and the people who bought this show they would not have, okay, you always talk about...
Ramifications go far beyond one night, Kyle.
I know, but you always talk about, these people are being brainwashed.
Yes.
John Cena winning that match would have brainwashed no one. It would have done nothing.
It would have.
No, it wouldn't have. You're wrong.
Would have elevated him a little bit in the eyes of people who aren't...
I think it would have just pissed people off. I think people have been like, really? John Cena stinks. He's not as good as The Rock, and I don't care.
And I'm going to say another thing here,
because John Cena is not... He's not as bad as his critics make him out to be, but he's not as good as the company makes him out to be. He did not give... Unless if, I don't know, something could have happened if they had some sort of spot or could have done something. You could tell they were going home.
Yeah.
I didn't believe that John Cena was as good as The Rock.
No.
No one did.
No.
There was no... Like, had Cena won, it would not have done what... You're thinking very in the academic... traditional sense, and I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
I'm just saying in this situation, let's look at this match in a vacuum. Let's throw out principles.
Yeah.
Let's throw out idealism. Let's throw out all that paraphernalia.
But I'm thinking business, too.
I know you are. Let's throw that out.
Okay.
Is what I'm saying.
All right.
In this situation,
yeah,
no one would have bought Cena as being elevated by winning. They just would have been pissed off.
I think you're overthinking it. I really think
you're overthinking it.
I think you are.
I don't.
People would have rolled with it eventually. I
disagree completely.
I think had The Rock positioned it in terms of the newfound respect for John Cena. I thought that's where they were going at the outset with this thing.
Yeah, and they did. And what happened that night? Remember when Cena's like, you know what? The crowd booed him for doing it. I think you're I think you're thinking too idealistically.
They were never committed to using The Rock to give Cena a positive rub. They were never committed
because the crowd didn't want. This. What I'm saying is, again, it's so bizarre that they actually this was the time they listened to the fans. The crowd did not want him to give him the rub. The crowd did not want The Rock to be nice to John Cena. This crowd...
You got a book for the people that are around all year, not just the marks that come in for once a year.
I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm saying that it would not have looked good. I mean, it would not have looked good for John Cena to win this.
It's less damaging than this big steaming turd of a legacy for this show, which is that the last 8 years don't matter, and that the only thing that matters is the Attitude Era. That's the message.
I think you're not giving the show the respect. The show did a monster number.
It did a monster number.
And
do
you think? All right, here's the $20 million question.
Yeah.
If John Cena wins this match, would the next 11 months be better?
I think there's a good chance of that.
I don't necessarily think they would be.
And it would have been
because they have set up such a culture where it will take now. There is one way that I would support John Cena going over here.
Yeah.
By turning heel.
Okay.
This was, remember I talked about him beating The Undertaker was one way?
Right.
This would have been the other. John Cena kind of throwing everything he can of the book and realize, kind of the Austin Rock thing.
Right.
But again, understanding where you're at.
Right.
Because that night they didn't understand where they were at.
Right.
It was a stupid place to turn Steve Austin heel.
Right.
Okay. This was kind of, I don't know if it's the opposite or the inverse. I always get those terms confused. This would have been the perfect time. The finish, the booking they did of Austin Rock that night. Wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah.
Had they taken that booking and put it here?
Yeah.
Right place, right time.
Yeah, in terms of a heel turn. I'm going to say this, though. And
I'm telling you that I don't think... I just think that it's one of those things that I don't think you can convince, because first of all, it's not true. John Cena's not as good as The Rock.
No,
he's not. And
I'm not even a fan of the Cena character. It's too hokey for me.
And here's the thing.
But this is where we're at. I'm arguing realpolitik.
Well, here's the thing. Yes, wrestling is all about perception, and
yes,
it certainly did not help John Cena the way they booked him at all.
Right.
But I think they looked at it. They made. Here's the thing. If we're the WWE book, you've got two options. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now I'm going to give them some credit and realize that they understand. They had some understanding of what a Rock win means. Is kind of some of the points you're saying. That okay, well, all right, guys, we got two options here. Because here's the thing. They've thrown out the John Cena heel turn. All right, we're sitting it's off the table. We're not turning John Cena heel.
Yep.
All right, creative people. We're not turning that. That's not an option. Don't bring it up. We're not doing that.
Yep.
Okay. So if I'm a creative guy, I have two options. All right, Rock wins. What does that mean? Well, it kind of means some of the things you're saying. That it basically vindicates all the people who are buying the show that think wrestling was better 10 years ago. It vindicates them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Or we have John Cena win here. And we don't give in to that vindication. But does the benefits of a Cena win outweigh how bad it will look in a vacuum with John Cena, by God, is leading this? Because here's the thing, okay? What do? By God, folks, John Cena is leading the WWF into a new generation. And meanwhile, the entire live crowd is booing. That looks terrible.
You know what?
It looks terrible. Here, folks, because, again,
30 seconds of that versus anytime you show it from then on in, you do what you're doing with Daniel Bryan and the yes chance, and you pipe in what you want to pipe in. You're underestimating the machine.
I think it's so funny that you're you're rooting for the machine, given what we've talked about.
That's true.
Okay,
yeah.
To me,
I flipped my jib on
the
this.
machine. Yeah, you did, didn't you? The machine can only go so far, Ricky. Here's what.
But I'm just saying, this is where we're at. I don't like the Cena character. I don't.
I know, and here's the problem. Okay, I'm not disagreeing that in the technical, in the idealistic sense, that in the like the ABCs of it. I always talk about the principles of wrestling. You shouldn't violate them.
Right.
And I'm contradicting myself here.
You are.
Okay.
Actually, yeah.
Look, yes, the common sense dictates the guy who's staying beats the guy who's not going to be around. I'm not disputing that. But I'm saying it would have, in this situation, the way they painted themselves into a corner, it would have looked so bad that I don't think the positives of Cena winning would have outweighed I don't think at this point, because Cena's a made guy anyway, and I think people understand that he's going to be around.
Right.
I think that's the whole thing.
Right.
Like, okay, look, John Cena's going to be around, and what can you do? Okay, he's going to be around. We're going to have our number of babyface. People just accept that. But you know what? You will never convince enough people to believe that John Cena is better than The Rock. Now, does that mean you shouldn't have tried? No. But I just on that stage, it would have looked bad, and I think you would. Here's the thing, because you already know The Rock's working WrestleMania again next year.
Right.
What do you? I mean, if The Rock loses there, I mean, what do you do with him? I guess for your next, because look, The Rock's going to be featured at the next WrestleMania.
Well, then it comes to look. I want to prove myself. I want to whatever. This is my chance to get back on the stage. I'm not going to rest. I'm not going to walk away until I can redeem what happened.
Again,
here.
You're thinking idealistically. He's not going to stay around.
No. But I mean, next year at WrestleMania on this stage,
what's he going to?
I'm going to get redemption.
Well, wouldn't he want to
wrestle?
I'm going to win
on the big
then?
stage.
So what's he going to do? Win the second match?
I
mean,
or somebody worthy of that. Here's my biggest problem, and this is if Vince McMahon were sitting at the table here, he would say, "Rick, I can never please you. I can never." And I would say, no, I just honestly think you've been wrong in all these things that you've done. Super Cena was horrible. Cena shouldn't have gone over at SummerSlam 10. The whole thing with the Nexus. Super Cena and the invincibility was bad. But then I applaud, in theory, the fact that he's getting to more of a give-back position on the card to where it's a little more parity with other top guys. But under the circumstances, it wasn't right for him to go down to Miz last year at WrestleMania the way that was booked. And this loss wasn't right either. Super Cena won when he should have lost a lot of times. And this new Cena, I applaud the extra vulnerability, but the vulnerability is showing up in all the wrong places.
Well, it's indicative of the era we're in. They did all the right things in the Rock's era, and now they typically do all the wrong things. So
they need to be like George Costanza. Whatever their instinct is for booking Cena, just go the other way.
But here's the problem. Again, there is never... It all boils... The whole booking of Cena is so bizarre in that here's a guy that they just pretend is this huge baby face, and he consistently gets booed.
Right.
Okay, I mean, badly booed. If any other baby face in history, the only other big-time baby face I can ever think of that got booed and they tried to just ignore it.
Hogan 94.
Was early WCW, and guess what they did with him? He did a massive heel turn. And, Eric Bischoff, well, not Bischoff, but Hogan acts like it was, we just decided, my brand was getting old and we're going to turn Hulk Hogan heel. No, you bald idiot. Okay? All right? The people hated you. And it worked so well because that was a crew that was a crowd that grew up on Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, Magnum TA, the Road Warriors. They watched
Ronnie Garvin.
Yes.
I've got to slip that in there, of course.
Yeah.
Hands of Stone, baby.
Yeah, Hands of Stone is right, okay? Personality of Stone. But listen.
He was a draw.
Okay. Starcade 87 begs otherwise. But that works so well because there was working. And the Cena thing, it's just like, it's so bizarre because it's just like, as a wrestling fan, it's just like, I used to be, but you talk about the old SNS days, I was like, I remember saying after many pay-per-views, they got to turn this guy heel.
Yeah.
The crowd does not like him. They are not accepting him as the number one babyface. They got to turn him heel.
6 years later, look at where we are.
We're in the same spot, and it's almost like it's to the point now where it's like, okay, well, if you do it, you better damn well make it mean a lot. You just can't. Back then, I would have been like, look, it was like I remember that he was getting booed at pay-per-views like Unforgiven 06 against Kurt Angle. Okay?
Right.
And I was like, oh dear God, he's got to come out tomorrow night and turn heel on
They're
these
doing
people.
everything but having Kurt Angle burn a flag on camera, and the crowd is just not buying it.
Yes, and it's like, oh God, they've got to turn him heel tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Okay. Now it's to the point where it's like I'm so numb to it. It's like, okay, you better, if you're going to do this now, you better do it. Again, in a major, major way.
Right.
And this could have been one of them. They didn't do it. And I'll say this, now to your point, okay, and as we transition away from WrestleMania 28, let's talk about the fallout.
Okay.
Right? We're going to talk about the fallout here?
We'll be talking about the fallout here in our next mini episode. I look forward to doing that.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
we'll do that then.